The rumored measure discussion between the three main opposition parties, Peter Obi of the Labour Party, Atiku Abubakar of PDP, and Atiku Kwankwaso of the NNPP. Arise TV published this a few hours ago, and predictably, it has generated mixed reactions. While some are hoping that, yes, it's a good way of battling APC if the courts actually cancel the election, some are saying no, there will be no measure. First of all, how did they know that that would be the only outcome from the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal? Cancellation of the election is just one of the many plays that the petitioners are praying the court, so the court will not determine that in isolation. Yes, granted that the evidence for non-compliance is so massive before the court. In fact, to summarize it, they have evidence that more than 25 million votes cannot be accounted for. And when you consider the fact that INEC announced about 25 million votes as the total votes cast during the presidential election, it clearly shows that about half of the total votes cast at the election cannot be accounted for. Not that one person received all the votes that are unaccounted, but according to the law, once the margin of difference between the candidates, especially the first and the second, is less than the unaccounted votes, the election is supposed to be declared inconclusive by INEC. But since they didn't do it, the court may now cancel the election. But like already said, they won't do that in isolation. The only logical reason the judges are still deliberating on this matter, they haven't announced the judgment day, is because they are trying to find a winner. Let's take it one by one. Let's start with issues that borders on constitutionality. 25% is a constitutional matter. It's just about interpreting the relevant section of the Constitution. So it wouldn't take a judge more than 2 hours to interpret and write his judgment. 2 hours because maybe the judge wants to read about the judicial precedent on the same matter. If not, it will take less time because it's written in plain English. To make you understand how fast the judges can determine this election by just looking at the constitutional grounds whether they were met or not. Remember what Olisa Abakoba said before the swearing-in ceremony. He said that the judges at the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal can determine and finalize the election petition under 1 week, that they should just focus on the constitutional matters. If they do that, they can resolve the whole problem under 1 week. That was his advice then. So, based on 25% alone, they can round it up in a few hours.
So I still reiterate, 7 days is enough time to go through the Court of Appeal at first instance and the Supreme Court. The only place where there might be a difficulty is if the questions I set out fail. And there's a strong possibility that they might fail. So we'll now go to part B of the case management issue, which is Peter Obi and other petitioners will now have to prove the irregularities set out in the petition. That would be a long time.
The next is all the issues that they raised about the non-qualification of Tinubu for the presidential election. Most of these issues, like the narcotics proceeds he forfeited to the United States government, the certificate forgery, his dual nationality he failed to disclose on his INEC form, his invalid nomination, and the double nomination of Shetima, all the issues they raised to prove that he was not qualified at the time he contested the presidential election. These are constitutional matters. And when you consider that his counsel did not even make any effort to counter them. You know, in court, when someone makes an accusation against you and presents evidence to the fact, your job is to present a counter evidence to sway the mind of the judges to say, yes, this is the real truth. The one he submitted is fake. That's not how it happened. Blah, 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 and other things. At least make an effort. They didn't make any effort. Imagine saying that the passport has expired. Therefore, the citizenship has also expired. Can you imagine making such a laughable argument in court? It doesn't prove anything. It doesn't counter the fact that he had or he continues to have a citizenship. It doesn't counter it at all. Because citizenship is not a paper that can expire. The passport is just for identification purposes. It's not the same thing as citizenship. So all these, they will just need to apply the Constitution. Hey, what does it say about someone who hid his dual nationality, who lied about it on his INEC forms? There's a provision for that in the Constitution. What about someone who forged a certificate? The two certificates are in front of the court. They have seen the two. There's no more deliberation that is needed. They will simply look at the Constitution. What does it say? Anyone who forges a certificate stands to be disqualified. Simply interpret the Constitution and apply the judgment. How about his failure to appoint a new vice presidential candidate more than 14 days after the placeholder withdrew his nomination? What does the law say? The law says a new vice presidential candidate must be appointed by the main candidate, by the flag bearer of the party, within 14 days. If that 14 days elapses without a new vice presidential candidate being appointed, the party should go back and conduct a fresh primary. Did all this happen? It never happened. APC maintained Tinubu as their flag bearer without conducting a fresh primary when they knew that they have flouted the law. They have breached the 14 days allowed by the law. So it's simple to determine. What does the law say? The law says it must be done under 14 days. Did he do it? The evidence says no, he didn't do it. Interpret the Constitution, write the judgment. It's as simple as that. So all this is just to make you understand that all the grounds, all the reliefs that the petitioners are seeking that borders on constitutionality can be determined under a few hours, under a few days. It doesn't need to take long all this time. So the only logical reason they are taking all this time to deliver the judgment is because they are looking at the massive evidence to see if they can truly find a winner. Is the evidence before them? Yes, it is. We'll come to that in a moment. Without prejudice, we are hoping that the judges will do the right thing. They promised before the hearing started that they will look at all the matters based on their merits, that they will not entertain any form of technicality to strike out all the cases. So we'll hold them by that word until we see something different. Getting back to the merger rumors, P2B will never accept any merger at this point in time because he knows he's at the pole position to be declared winner. Let's even assume that the only outcome is the cancellation of the election. All the candidates have tested their popularity. They know who is more popular. Do you think someone like P2B will step down for Atiku Abubakar? Atiku Abubakar was banking on the fact that he will clear the whole north. That was why he became a bit arrogant. He didn't want to understand the sentiments that Southerners want power shift to the south after Buhari spent 8 years. So he didn't want that. He arrogantly felt that maybe he would just win just a few states in the south. With clearing the north, he will win the election. But all that didn't happen. Even some of the states he won in the south, we know the governors rigged the election for him. Is it Kwankwaso? After saying the north wouldn't vote for a southern president, or is it Igbo person he said? At the end of the day, the person he talked down on eventually won more votes in the northern region, more states in the northern region than Kwankwaso himself. So if it wasn't clear who was more popular before the election, it is now clearer after the election. All of them know, they are aware who is more popular amongst them. Even looking at all the presidential election polls that were conducted before the presidential election, none of them put Atiku as a winner. None. It was P2B that cleared all the polls, but one or two polls mentioned high turnout of voters as the condition for the win. That was why INEC disenfranchised millions of voters in Labour Party strongholds. They hid millions of votes, as can be seen in the 25 million votes that are missing, that cannot be accounted for. This takes us back to why the judges are taking their time, going by the evidence before them. The 18,000 blood copies that INEC gave Labour Party, and in order to prove the figures hidden behind them, the Labour Party submitted more than 10,000 polling unit results their own party agents gave to them on election day. A summary of the total votes Labour Party scored in those 10,000 polling units is approximately 2.5 million votes. When you add these 2.5 million votes to the total that INEC allocated to P2B, which is 6.1 million votes, that will push him to second position with 8.6 million votes. Is not finished. The judges will still need to cancel elections where overvoting occurred. Places like Kogi and all the places he got massive votes, they padded his votes with non-existent voters. When they do all the deductions, including determining his actual score in polling units contained in 18,000 blood copies, he will now drop down to his correct position, either second or third position. According to the overvoting
Go,